Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 24 team selection and we've also had a lot of information around upcoming blanks and doubles so I can start to talk about my future plans as well. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel and you get any use out of this video, please do smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So if you are someone that is new to the game and you're struggling with all of the upcoming blanks and doubles and you're not particularly sure, I do think this is the best channel for you because I love this time of the season. I love the strategizing and I will try my best in pretty much every video to break down as simply as possible what is coming up with blanks and doubles and the best way to deal with that. Next week, there will be a dedicated chip strategy and blanks and doubles guide video because I feel like we'll have a little bit more time next week to break it down. And that's at the point really going into Game Week 25. Where I think you start to need to have a strategy as to how you're going to deal with these blanks and doubles. That being said, I still think that it is worth discussing now because some of your transfers may start to depend upon what your strategy is. Although maybe not. We'll discuss that now. So Game Week 25 is the first thing coming up, which is next week, which is a small double game week for Liverpool, Luton, Man City and Brentford. We've now had that confirmed and we now know that those are the 4 teams to target if you want more fixtures in Game Week 25. We then have a blank game week, and the most difficult teams to deal with are going to be Liverpool and Luton because they double the week before, right? So if you want to bring in Liverpool and Luton assets for the double in 25, you're also going to have them for blank game week 26 unless you play some sort of chip. But as we'll discuss throughout the videos coming up, I don't necessarily think that a free hit or wildcard in 26 is the best idea. So it's how many Luton and Liverpool assets do you bring in for that double to then have them blanking in 26? And on top of that, Spurs and Chelsea both blank in 26 as well. So navigating 25 and 26 will be quite difficult, and you need to start thinking about that. For Game Week 28, we've now had it confirmed that both Bournemouth and Luton will be doubling in Game Week 28, and the double for Bournemouth in particular looks absolutely brilliant. So I can guarantee you are going to want Solanke for 28, and you are probably going to want 1 or 2, if not 3 Luton assets, especially given that they have a good chance of playing in blank Game Week 29. So you can now see already why Luton assets are very tricky because they double in 25. They actually play Sheffield United this week, but they then blank in 26. They then double in 28, and they may play in the upcoming blank 29. So it's very difficult because they feel like very useful assets, but 26 may be difficult to navigate with having various Luton assets on top of Liverpool and Spurs and Chelsea. So after double game week 28, we then have blank game week 29, which is confirmed to be the biggest blank game week of the season and is going to be one of the most difficult game weeks to navigate because most of the teams that we would want to have players from aren't playing, and the teams that are playing maybe don't have the most desirable assets. So the teams that we have confirmed will definitely be playing in 29 at the time of me recording on Thursday, the 8th of February, are Spurs, Fulham, Burnley, Brentford, and now Villa and West Ham. And the reason for that is that Chelsea beat Villa in the FA Cup. So now Chelsea and Arsenal have a very good chance of blanking, and now Villa and West Ham have a fixture. So that has turned on its head for us. So immediately you can see they're probably the 2 teams that you would want to target. Or maybe 3 teams, is Spurs against Fulham, Brentford against Burnley, and maybe Villa against West Ham. The other teams that are likely to be playing are both Nottingham Forest and Luton, but for that to happen, Forest have to lose to Manchester United in the Cup, and also Luton have to lose to Man City, and I would say there is a chance that Forest beat Manchester United. So if Forest lose to Manchester United, Forest and Luton will go ahead. If Forest beat Manchester United, then Forest and Luton will be a blank, and it will actually be Manchester United against Sheffield United in blank game week 29, which again will completely change. You can see here at the bottom, I've put a little asterisk. Unfortunately, we won't actually know the Game Week 29 blanks until just before the Game Week 27 deadline. So you can't really make any complete judgments around what you're going to do for Game Week 29, in my opinion anyway, until Game Week 27. So it starts to pull into question, do we really need to be thinking too much about chip strategy, blanks and doubles beyond 25 and 26, and maybe to some extent 28? Because we've got this upcoming double, we've got this upcoming blank. Do we just focus our attention on that? Are our transfers really going to matter for future weeks beyond that at the moment? And I think maybe not. After blank game week 29, we then have double and blank 34 and double game week 37. The projections for this at the moment is that game week 34 looks a bit stinky. And what I mean by that is it's likely to have a couple of blanks and a couple of doubles, but they don't look particularly appetizing at the moment. And game week 37 looks much nicer. Game week 37 looks like it'll be a big juicy double. But the issue with 37 is that by that time, a lot of teams have already switched off. If they're mid-table, what are they fighting for? Really, it's like maybe 1 or 2 places. But some teams, it may be that they're finishing 13th and that's it. Again, let's say that maybe Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, one of the teams have wrapped up the Premier League. Well, then they're probably going to go fairly lightweight as well. So Game Week 37 can be very tricky dependent upon which teams have stuff to play for. But that is the upcoming schedule as we know it. Of course, a few things could change around that. But what we know for sure is 25, 26, and 28. And so I kind of feel like at the moment, you should prioritise getting as many doublers in 25 as possible and hopefully getting a full squad of 11 players in Game Week 26. So with that being said, hopefully that is now clear, the blank and double schedule. Let's take a look at my team for Game Week 24. So guys, now I've explained the blanks and doubles, I'm going to briefly, and I say briefly, for me at least briefly, run through my team for Game Week 24, because what I actually want to spend a bit more time doing is talking about how my transfer plans will affect future transfers, and then also have a bit of a discussion around chip strategy as well, because whilst each of my players are very important, as they always are, and you want to get as many points as possible, I feel like at the moment it's good to take a macro view, just zoom out a little bit and think about how many players do I have that are doubling for 25? How many players will I have in 26? Which transfers can I make if I don't want to use my chips, which will allow me to get as many players in 28 and 29 as possible. So I am going to focus on some of the players, but I also want to zoom out a little bit because I think that will be helpful for your teams as well to understand what I'm roughly aiming for in the upcoming blanks and doubles. So for 24, I've got 1 free transfer, 2.2 million in the bank, and I'm currently lining up in a 3-4-3. And as you can see, my team is rated at 95% according to Fantasy Football Hub. So very, very happy with it. I do think my team is set up well, but there are some things that I'm potentially struggling with. And the main thing that I'm struggling with in particular is blank Game Week 26, because I've already got 5 players blanking, 6 if you count Charlie Taylor, who's likely to be injured for 26 as well. And I'm potentially looking at even adding another player that blanks in 26. So Game Week 26 for certain, for me at least, is going to be the most difficult week to navigate. But I just want to say immediately on Game Week 26, I don't think you have to field 11 players. Because who's to say that 2 or 3 of your players wouldn't blank anyway? So you're not really gaining something often by having 11 players, right? So many times in recent weeks, 2 or 3 of my players have scored 1 point. So just having 11 players for me isn't always that critical. The key thing for me is that the 7 or 8 players you have, if that's all you have, are really good quality players. You cover the key players for that week, and you also cover the major captaincy options for that week as well. As long as you do those things, I don't think having 11 players in a blank game week is always that important. But anyway, we'll discuss all of that. Starting with the goalkeepers, I've got Dubravka and Areola. I was heavily considering making a goalkeeper transfer. In particular, Kaminsky really interested me because of the double in 25, because of the double in 28, and also possibly playing in Game Week 29. And of course, he's got Sheffield United at home this week. So I was very interested in Kaminsky, but the result last night in the FA Cup means that now Areola will have a fixture in blank Game Week 29. So the issue with my goalkeeper pairing as it was it looks like I wasn't going to have a fixture in 29, but now I will. I have a goalkeeper for every single game week. I've got Areola, who's got a good fixture in 26. They both have a good fixture in 25, and then I've now got Areola for blank game week 29. So I'm very, very happy now with my goalkeeper pairing, and as a result, I don't think I'll be making a goalkeeper transfer, and this week it is going to be Dubravka for me. For the back line, I'm actually really happy with it for this week. Porro, Trent, and Gabriel are absolutely fine for this week. I know there are some doubts around Trent's minutes. I myself am a little bit worried, but I think he'll play the Burnley game. My doubts for Trent is around the second game in the double game week. I think that fixture against Luton, just before the final of the EFL Cup, there is a strong chance, if Connor Bradley is available then, that he will probably play that game. Could Trent play in midfield because Szoboszlai looks like he'll be out? Absolutely he could. Or could Trent start and get 60 and then Bradley come on? Again, absolutely. But I'm a little bit worried about Trent's minutes. I kind of feel like if you don't already own a Liverpool defender, I would probably go for Van Dijk at the moment. I just wouldn't take the risk on Trent. But for this week against Burnley at home, I expect him to start. I think he's great. Gabriel is absolutely brilliant. I know he got the -1 recently, but I'm not too worried about that. I think it's an okay fixture against West Ham. The issue with Gabriel now, again, due to the FA Cup result last night, Gabriel will not have a fixture in blank game week 29. So eventually, Gabriel and Saka are 2 players that we may well need to transfer out of our teams. But for now, Gabriel's fine. Pedro Porro is unfortunately a player for me that I'm looking to sell. That isn't because I dislike Porro. The next 2 fixtures are actually very nice for Porro. And after blank game week 26, he's got very nice fixtures and he plays in blank game week 29. So Pedro Porro is a brilliant player to own. I really want to emphasize that. My issue with Porro is he's expensive and he doesn't play in 26. And as I said, my team is a bit of an issue for 26. And with the main transfer that I want to make, I have to free up some funds. And for me, if I'm looking at my team being an issue for 26 and I need to free up funds, selling a defender that doesn't keep many clean sheets and blanks very soon doesn't feel like the worst transfer to make. And I do think Brighton will score in this game. So sadly, not due to Pedro Porro being a bad option, I'm looking at maybe selling him. Pau Torres, right, so Pau Torres, I've been on an emotional journey with him, right? I brought him in, he then got injured, he's been injured for so long now, and it's been so frustrating, but I've just held him, because I knew if he played in blank game week 26, he would probably be very valuable to me. It now looks like he will play in blank game week 26, and on top of that, because Villa were knocked out of the FA Cup, it also looks like he'll play in blank game week 29 as well. So I've now gone from Pau Torres being an issue to him being an excellent hold for me because he's got a really good fixture in 26 and a pretty decent fixture in 29 too. And I actually think now Aston Villa players will be brilliant purchases, and it makes holding Ollie Watkins even more desirable because in the upcoming 2 blank game weeks, they've got really nice fixtures. So if Pau Torres gets minutes against Manchester United, I would go as far as saying he's an excellent purchase for game week 26 if you're looking for a cheap defender. So really happy to have Pau Torres. And then I'll just end with Charlie Taylor. A real issue for me because in Game Week 26, this blank that we've got coming up, you do really need to have all of your players available. And at the time of me recording, it looks like he won't be available for that fixture. So not only do I have to deal with the likes of Porro, Trent, Doe, and all of these Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs assets that are blanking in 26, I've got bloody Charlie Taylor sat there with an injury. So Charlie Taylor, sadly, I was really happy to play him in 26 because he had an okay fixture. He looks like a player that I will unfortunately have to transfer out. So I'm now looking at Charlie Taylor as another player that is blanking, but I'm not sure that making the move this week makes much sense for me because I'm already struggling with funds. And I think that Charlie Taylor, whilst I could do like Taylor to Van Heck or something like that, it just doesn't feel like a transfer I need to make this week. It's probably a transfer I'll have to make in game week 26. So that is the current situation. Porro very likely to be sold for me, sadly, because I need to free up funds. So let's look at the transfer that I'd like to make that I need funds for. So if we have a look at my midfield, and again, I'll try to keep this a little bit more macro, i.e. do they play or double in certain game weeks? Saka is fine for now. He plays in blank game week 26. He's obviously got a fixture in game week 25 against Burnley, so I quite like that. And also after that, he then plays against Sheffield United and Brentford. So I actually think Bukayo Saka is a very good hold until around game week 27, game week 28. However, again, due to the fact that Chelsea progressed in the FA Cup, and if they beat Leeds in the 5th round, both Chelsea and Arsenal will blank in game week 29. And I should emphasise that Chelsea do need to beat Leeds for that to happen, right? They're not confirmed to have a blank yet. And therefore, I think Saka will be sold around 29. But for now, I don't think he needs to be. So Saka will be staying. Richarlison, in a similar way to Porro, does cause me some issues for 26, but he's so good for the next 2. He's playing so fantastically at the moment that I don't really want to sell Richarlison yet. And I may well hold Richarlison through 26 and just keep him after that. Because you can hold, obviously, 3 players on your bench that are blanking in 26. And I just feel like Richarlison may end up being one of the ones that I want to hold. That being said, with Heung-min Son returning now, if over the next 2 weeks Richarlison's minutes look like they've been reduced slightly, there is a very good chance that I sell Richarlison too. The only way I'm holding Richarlison is if he continues to get 80 plus minutes, even with everyone being back and available. And I think he will, in all honesty. I think he's definitely first choice forward, but we'll assess that over the next 2 weeks. Phil Foden's great. Not going to sell Phil Foden. 3 home fixtures in a row, doubles in 25, plays in 26. Manchester City assets are so valuable because they double in 25 and they also have a fixture in the blank game week. It's one of the reasons I would love De Bruyne, but I just don't see an easy route to De Bruyne in my team unless I sell Saka. And given that Saka plays West Ham and then Burnley, am I confident De Bruyne starts all 3 of the next 3? I think he probably will, but I'm not confident. And I actually maybe prefer the fixtures for Saka, especially that Burnley game in 25. So that's the only reason that I would love De Bruyne, I really would, but it would be selling Saka or Watkins. And due to what we now know about Watkins, given that he plays in 29 and he's got great fixtures, and given the fixtures that Saka has, I'm not entirely sure that I can get De Bruyne into this team, sadly. But Foden is an absolutely fine pick in and of himself. Obviously, no need to discuss selling Phil Foden. I've then got Gordon and Palmer. And in all honesty, I don't have a massive issue with selling either. At the time of me recording, I don't have an update on Gordon. Even if he's fit, though, he probably would be on the bench for me, as you can see, because I've got an absolutely stacked attack. So there's a chance Gordon doesn't play for me regardless this week. In 25, I could absolutely play him. He's got a good fixture in 25, and I probably would. I would probably bench Palmer if I didn't make any transfers in 25. And then in 26, he's got a fixture, but it's Arsenal. So he could score against Arsenal. We know he could, but it's not a great fixture, but at least he has a fixture. And given the fact that Gordon has been fantastic, I've recently transferred him in because he is a good asset and because he has a fixture in 26. I am kind of semi-keen to hold on to Gordon. The other player is Palmer. And Palmer, for me, is 10 times the FPL asset that Gordon is. Maybe not 10 times. 2 or 3 times the asset that Gordon is, because he's got better data, he's on more set pieces, he's on penalties himself, and he's just a player that is getting return after return, and he's so good for bonus points as well. And I actually think this is a pretty decent fixture for Cole Palmer this week. My issue with Palmer, like I said, is he's got City in 25, he then blanks in 26, and assuming Chelsea beat Leeds in the 5th round of the FA Cup, he'll blank in 29 as well. So you are going from having a player that will probably play in 29 to not playing in 29, also blanking in 26 and not having a good fixture next week either. And I've got a little bit of money tied up in Cole Palmer. So if I sell him and want to buy him back, it'll be at a pretty expensive price. And he is such good value. And I almost guarantee that he will still get points over this period. But when I'm looking at my team again for 26, it's a bit of an issue. And having Gordon, even if it's not a great fixture, is still a fixture. And I just wonder, what is the value in holding Palmer? Yes, he's got a good fixture this week, but then not next week. Blank in 26, blank in 29. So it's really 27 and 28. And in those weeks, I can get away with having some other players in his position. So I'm a little bit hesitant, but at the moment, the plan is maybe to sell Cole Palmer. And of course, the player that I want to sell Cole Palmer to, you can guess it, is Diogo Jota. And I know people will look at my team and say, you've got Porro, Richarlison, Palmer, Trent. You'll see in a second I've got Darwin and I've got Charlie Taylor. You do not need to be adding any more players that blank in 26. It's causing a disaster for your team. And I hear you. I don't care. I want Diogo Jota. And I think sometimes we can overthink these things of, oh, I've got this many players blanking and this many players. I want Diogo Jota. I think he's an excellent option. I think across Burnley, Brentford and Luton, he could do some serious damage. And I really want to attack double game week 25. And I have absolutely no issues with taking a -4 this week, attacking 25, taking a -4 in 26 to try and fill 10 or 11 players. And I don't mind taking hits in these weeks, because if you're taking hits to attack doubles, you're getting extra fixtures. If you're taking hits to deal with blanks, you're getting extra fixtures. And therefore, in these kind of weeks, there's like a cliche saying, it's more like a -2 than a -4. If you take a hit in a blank game week or in a double, you're getting the extra fixtures. But it's kind of true, because you are, just through appearance points alone, getting extra fixtures. I understand with Jota it's different, because I'm not only taking a -4 to bring Jota in, I'm also taking a -4 to take Jota out probably in 26. So it's more like a -8 for Jota, but I just feel like the upside is there for Burnley, Brentford and Luton. And I just want to have fun, and I want to own another Liverpool attacker for that double game week. So there it is. At the moment, the plan transfers, before we take a look at my forwards, is to do Palmer to Jota. The reason then that Porro comes into the equation is I can't do Palmer to Jota because I don't have the funds to do it. I could do Gordon to Jota, and you may say just keep Palmer, do Gordon to Jota, and maybe work out what you want to do with Palmer in the future. But I feel like Palmer to Jota gets me a little bit ahead. And to do Palmer to Jota, I would downgrade Porro. Now, I have up to 5.2 or 5.3 million, depending upon price changes, to sell Porro for. And therefore, I'm looking at a Manchester City defender, right? Because they double in 25. They play Everton this week, which is a good fixture. And then they play in 26. I suppose the issue with City defenders is, yes, they have fixtures in 24, 25 and 26. But who's going to play all of them? Possibly none of them. But the two that I'm looking at the moment, because I can't afford Kyle Walker, are Nathan Ake and Gvardiol. And I think both of them have played a lot of minutes recently. But both of them will be more prone to rotation now, given Akanji and Stones are back. I'm probably leaning Ake at the moment because I think he's got greater goal threat. And it's also his birthday coming up in double game week 25. There seems to be something going on with players scoring on their birthday. So a Nathan Ake bullet header on his birthday, who knows? But it will be one of Gvardiol or Ake, and that would give me 6 double game week players for double game week 25, 3 Liverpool, 3 City. It does block me from De Bruyne, but I don't necessarily mind that. So that's the plan at the moment, but let's take a look at the 3 forwards and then take a bit more of a detailed look about my transfer possibilities, routes, and also at the end of the video, my chip strategy. I'm going to keep this section fairly short. I say this all the time and I never keep anything short, but let's just go through the forwards because I'm very, very happy with my forwards. Haaland will probably get the armband for me this week if we get a leak that he's starting, and I should note that Man City are the early kickoff on Saturday. So there is a chance that we do get a leak around the team, or at least a leak around those key players like Haaland, Foden and De Bruyne. So if Haaland's starting, he'll get the armband. If there are any doubts around his start, or if I'm just feeling a little bit brave, I am tempted to captain Darwin or Jota because I think the fixture is significantly better. There have been times in the past where City and Haaland have struggled against Everton. Actually, if you look at the expected goals that Haaland has got against all of the different teams in the Premier League thus far, Everton are one of the teams that he struggles most against. So I kind of look at this and I think it's not a great fixture, but I still think Haaland is a better asset than Darwin. And therefore, and that hurts to say, believe me. And therefore, despite the fixture being a little bit more difficult, I still think Haaland's probably a slightly better captain than Darwin, but I am certainly tempted. I'd love to know down below, who are you looking at captaining for Gameweek 24? So Haaland will have the armband. I'm obviously not going to sell Haaland. Darwin, I'm really, really glad I held on to him because he now has Burnley, Brentford, Luton. Lots of people looking at bringing in Darwin this week. If you want my opinion on Darwin versus Jota, I discussed that in yesterday's video. So go and check that out. I discussed in quite a lot of detail who I thought was the better asset, but I love the fact that I have Darwin in my team. And like I said, a genuine captaincy shout for both 24 and 25. And then Ollie Watkins is the player that if I was to sell one of them, of course it would be him because he doesn't double. But I just think given the fixtures that he's got, given the fact that he plays in blank game week 26, and now given the fact he also plays in blank game week 29, I'm just going to hold Ollie Watkins through. I don't see any need to sell him. I actually think Manchester United at home is a good fixture for him, and they'll want to bounce back after that very, very poor performance against Chelsea. So I think Watkins, Haaland, and Darwin, I would argue, is potentially the best front three you can have at the moment. I know Solanke will need to come in at some point for that double in 28, but I can do that in 26 or 27. So Solanke doesn't need to come in right now. And I also think Tony is a very good option for double game at 25, even though it's a difficult double. But again, Watkins for one fixture versus Tony for two very difficult fixtures. I'm kind of happy rolling the dice with Watkins. So I'm very happy with my front three. I will not be making a forward transfer anytime soon unless there are any injuries. So that's the way the team is. I'll try to remember to flash it on screen now just to remind you what the transfer is. It will basically be, at least at the time you're recording, I think, Palmer and Porro to Jota and Ake Ogvardiol, so a City defender. I am still semi-tempted to not take the hit and just do Gordon to Jota and then bench one of Foden or Palmer. Would probably be one of the two that I would bench. Doesn't feel great benching either of them given their returns recently, but I am tempted to do that. But then still, I probably will want to sell Palmer in 26 anyway because he blanks in 26 and 29, probably in 29. So I kind of feel like why not just sell Palmer this week? But it is a very good fixture against Crystal Palace. So that's the current plan. That's the current team. Let's take a look at what my rough chip strategy is at the moment. And then some possible transfer plans, believe it or not, from Game Week 24 all the way through until Game Week 31. So guys, at the time of recording, here are the two strategies that I'm most likely to deploy with my chips. It should just be noted that this could very well change. And I unfortunately don't think I can make a confirmed decision until the midweek between Game Week 26 and Game Week 27. And the reason for that is that's when we'll see the FA Cup 5th round results. And that's when we'll know which teams are definitely blanking and definitely playing in Game Week 29. If those go a certain way, yes, I could end up free hitting in 29. And I want to say I don't think it's a bad play at all. I think it's a very, very, very good strategy to free hit in the biggest blank game week of the season. But I just don't think I need it if you can carefully plan your transfers and given the players that I already own and I plan on owning. So I don't think at the time of me recording, based on the projected fixtures, that I need a free hit in 29. And therefore, my current strategy will be one of the following two. You can see in both strategy 1 and strategy 2, they're in the same order, the chips. And also on top of that, triple captain is in 25, almost guaranteed. And free hit is in 37. I would say like 60 to 70% likely that will be the case. The only other weeks possibly are the blank game week in 29 or the blank and double in 34. The reason for triple captain 25, I know lots of people will be looking at Solanke in 28. I just think that Haaland's a better asset. I just think I prefer having Haaland as the triple captain. So I think almost definitely, unless he looks injured or we don't think he'll play both, Haaland will be getting the triple captaincy in 25. If Haaland is unavailable, I could triple captain in 28, or I could go for a Darwin in 25, which I think would be pretty funny. And I also think he is a good option as well. But it would be very true to the way this channel is run that Darwin could be getting the armband. So I still think regardless of what happens, I'll probably triple captain in 25. My plan has always been strategy 2, right? My plan has always been dead end into the free hit, dead end into Game Week 29, I should say. And what we mean by that is build your team towards trying to get out a good 11 or good 10 at least in the blank Game Week 29, and then wildcard out of that, right? Because if you build your team towards being good in 29 without a free hit, your team's going to be a bit of a mess. So you probably need to wildcard in either Game Week 30 or Game Week 31. So build towards the blank, wildcard out of that, and then you've got your bench boost and your free hits using 34 and 37. And due to 37 just looking so juicy with a lot of doubles and 34 looking a bit naff, I think probably bench boost 34, free hit 37 looks viable. So that has always been the plan, really. Strategy 2 for the last kind of 3-4 weeks since we've known a little bit more information. Strategy 1, however, is a little bit more tempting given the double now that we have for Bournemouth and Luton in 28 and possibly some of the fixtures that we have in 29. I think you could get away with a strategy where you wildcard in 27, bring in probably, believe it or not, like triple Luton if they play in 29 because they double in 28, maybe play in 29. Maybe have Solanke only from Bournemouth because they, of course, blank in 29. You could also have triple Spurs and triple Villa because both Spurs and Villa play in Game Week 29 and they also have good fixtures in and around 29 as well. So your wildcard 27 could look something like triple Luton, triple Villa, triple Spurs, and a few other players from some other teams as well, of course. Maybe having like an Ivan Toney in there as well, because again, he's got a really nice fixture in 29. That wildcard would then probably see you through for the latter parts of the season, or at least post Game Week 29, because a lot of those players would still be good assets to own. But you probably would need to then take hits between sort of Game Week 30 and Game Week 33, because that's when I would be, let's say if I did strategy 2, wildcarding. So I think what it basically comes down to, and this is when some people, I think, overcomplicate it, you are going to have to take hits at some point. I can promise you that, unless you're putting out a suboptimal team in multiple weeks, there will be times of the season where you need to take hits. In strategy 1, you take those hits between Game Week 30 and Game Week 33. In strategy 2, you take those hits between Game Week 26, and probably you need to take hits in 26 anyway, but let's say between Game Week 27 and Game Week 29. So I think both strategies are very similar and you need to take hits and your wild card to help you at points. On the bench boost in strategy 1, you could bench boost in 28, but I have a feeling that the bench might not look perfect if you're also trying to build a really good team for Game Week 29. I haven't looked at this in too much detail, but it could be an option that you just get the bench boost out the way in 28, or you could keep it for 34. But the issue is if you wildcard in 27, that's 4 weeks before the 31 wildcard, the bench boost may be looking a lot weaker by the time you get to 34. So I am not locking in anything. In my opinion, to sort of sum this up, I don't think you need to confirm your wildcard or free hit strategy until the Game Week 27 deadline. Because I think, regardless, you probably deal with 25 and 26 in the same way. In 25, you want to get as many doublers as possible. And in 26, you probably want to get as many players as possible. The only thing it may impact is you might not want to go out there and bring in too many Luton assets to plan long term, if you may wildcard anyway very soon. And the other thing it may impact is your transfers in 26. If you're planning to wildcard in 27, you're only taking 1 week punts. Where if you're not planning to wildcard in 27, the transfers that you make in 26 would be a little bit longer term. So outside of that, I don't think your transfers for 24 and 25 will be massively different depending upon your chip strategy. And therefore, I don't think you need to lock anything in for the time being. I would love to know down below, if you've planned out your chip strategy, what is your plan for the chips going forward? So I know this is going to look absolutely bonkers, and I never book in transfers. So what I'm about to show you isn't me booking in transfers for future weeks. It's just showing you a possible transfer route from Game Week 24 to Game Week 31 if you were to choose not to wildcard and not to free hit, and your first wildcard or free hit chip be around Game Week 30-31. I just want to show you that it is possible, and yes, you have to take a few hits, but if it allows you to keep your wildcard and free hit for the back end of the season, it may well be worth it. Again, I'm not booking any of these transfers in, and I'm fully aware, by the way, I've put planned hits because there will be other transfers and hits that you have to make based on players getting injured and rotated. So this is just a rough strategy, and of course it would change. But let's say I do Palmer and Porro to Jota and Ake for a -4 this week. That would load me up, as you can see at the bottom, with 6 doublers for Game Week 25. 3 Liverpool, 3 City. I would then plan to roll the transfer in 25 because my team looks absolutely beautiful for that week. And then going into Game Week 26, I'd have 2 free transfers. I would then remove all 3 of my Liverpool assets probably. So Jota, Trent, Darwin would come out because they blank in 26 and 29. right? So Jota, Trent, Darwin coming out. And then I would bring in something like Bruno, Pinnock, and Solanke, because Pinnock plays in 29, Solanke has the double in 28, and Bruno does have an off chance of being available for blank game week 29 if Manchester United lose to Nottingham Forest. So therefore, I feel like they are 3 good transfers. They've also got fixtures, obviously, in blank game week 26, and that would give me, believe it or not, assuming they all play, 11 players for blank game week 26. So with 2 -4 transfers across the next 3 weeks, I can have 6 doublers and 11 players playing in blank game week 26. The plan in game week 27 would then be to do Foden to Son, because I think Son will be very desirable. He's got good fixtures and he plays in 29, whereas City have difficult fixtures and of course they will probably blank in 29. So Foden to Son is the single transfer in 27. In 28, of course, it's another hit. This is the double game week for Bournemouth and Luton. So we'd be looking at something here like Ake and Haaland to Doughty and Adebayo. Bring in 2 Luton assets, especially if by this point we know for a fact that they play in 29. That will make them even more desirable. So Ake and Haaland coming out, Doughty and Adebayo coming in. I never thought I would say those words, but that would give me 3 doublers for 28. Solanke, Doughty and Adebayo, which I think is absolutely fine. In 29, you guessed it, it's another -4 transfer. This time to make sure that I can field 11 players in the blank game week, and it would be something like Solanke and Saka to Tony and Bailey. We now know again that Villa play in 29, and obviously Tony plays against Burnley. So, just to recap, that is 16 points of hits over that spell, but I've saved 2 of the most valuable chips in the free hit and the wild card, and it would give me 6 doublers in 25, 11 players in blank game week 26, 3 doublers in 28, and 11 players in 29. Of course, this is an ideal world, and things will happen. If I pick up 5 or 6 injuries over this spell, I will probably be forced into playing a chip. But it's to show you that if things do line up, it's not that difficult to get doublers and players playing in the blank game weeks. Then you would have the option to wildcard in 30, or just carry your team through for 1 more week and do something like Adebayo to Nkunku, because Chelsea have a good fixture, 1 week punt, and then you wildcard in 31. I'm going to leave it there because I know that sounds bonkers to plan that far ahead, but I've just seen so many people say it's just not possible to do it. With my team, which is in all honesty a relatively template team, it's possible to attack the doubles and deal with the blanks, but you have to be willing to take a few hits along the way. And you might say, I don't want to take hits. I can promise you, like I said, there is going to be a point in this season where you have to take hits. If you don't take hits now and you decide to wildcard and free hit, you're going to have to take hits later when other people are using their wildcard and free hit. So just decide when you want to take the hits, commit to the strategy, but I don't think you need to commit to the strategy until between game week 26 and 27. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 24 team selection, but obviously a real focus now on the upcoming blanks and doubles. I hope this wasn't too confusing and it was actually helpful. Obviously, feel free to rewatch it. Feel free to plan your team alongside me if you want to, but you do really need to start thinking ahead at this point. You can't just go week by week and just deal with it. You need to start thinking about what your strategy might be moving forward. If you did get any use out of today's video, please do make sure you drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe as well. I do really appreciate it. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.